to look to secure it. The trouble is we've got 3 different landowners here, all different care operators, and also the primary health trusts. So unfortunately it's not a planning issue as such, but it may be something that we can explore in the future as encourage them to develop as the scheme moves forward.
I think you're right in terms of it makes sense to have that access in. As part of some of the conditions, they're boundary treatment. So what we'll do is we'll continue to have conversations with surgery and the operators to see if we can do anything.
I accept it's got to be balanced against security as well. But it just came to mind when they built the original developments up by Hollow Lane, each one was separate and there was just no permeability of people. I know we're talking about, as it were, a different type of resident here, but I think if that could be taken away.
Yeah. There is, just to point out, Angus, there is a gate here which is lockable, so that this could be utilised in the future potentially for the residents of this care home to walk through the site if we can develop that with the applicant.
That's the opposite side of the medical centre.
That's strong enough though that you're going to talk to them. Could we consider a condition?
We can put a condition on. The problem is we need the permission of the surgery to CCG to do that as well. It's not just putting one in. There's a third party that we have to convince. So.
Well, I've got Roger, John, you haven't spoken. Well, you haven't spoken, so I'll let you go next and then I'll come to Rochelle.
Looking at the ground floor plan on page 81, it shows 34 one-bedroom apartments or one-bedroom flats. If you take the second floor, it's 31 on the same footprint. That gives 68. What happens on the third floor, and is 68 correct?
The third floor is for staff accommodation and sort of facilities within that area. So all of sort of care rooms will be provided on the first and second floor. There's a staff welfare unit as such on the third floor.
Do we have a restriction or a condition that they will only be used for staff and not for the use of the residents?
I wouldn't have thought that being necessary because it's covered by the description of the application itself. So if they were to increase numbers, then they would need separate planning permission, and in addition, they need to relocate those welfare facilities for the staff. So I don't think it would be necessary. I think it fails that test, but it's something members may wish to consider.
We'll just get Malcolm, he hasn't had it yet. Malcolm.
Thank you. Well, it's not about the building, it's about which one is the extra care home, which is care. They seem to have the numbers run the wrong way. If you look at page 17, it says there's 80 units and the total number of employees is just 15. That's about roughly 1 in 5. And that's for the ordinary, sorry, that's for the extra care one. If you then look at page 55, there's 68 units and 65 full-time employees, almost 1 to 1. I'm just wondering whether those numbers are out the right way for the two buildings.
So yeah, it's a different type of care, so basically between the two. Sorry.
I thought the second one is ordinary care and the first one was extra care.
No,
that's what it says in the book.
It's the first one is assisted care, so as you can move into it. Sorry, Malcolm, you're so the first one is assisted care, so you move into it as your needs. Continue their staff on site to be able to help you. The second one is actually more of a care facility, so you move in and you need the care, hence the level of staff is much higher.
Extra care, thank you.
Rochelle.
I'd like to second the idea of sprinklers and encourage more developers with sprinklers, and especially in places where individuals are mobility impaired, and trying to get them out in case of a fire. At least you can stop the fire sooner. It's just an encouragement for future developments.
Thank you, Rochelle. Right. I did think you were going to ask another question, Rochelle, because the car parking, the 32 spaces, 25 staff, there's only 7 for visitors, which doesn't sound very many.
Yeah, I don't necessarily, it does sound like you are correct, but in terms of the assessment that was undertaken by the officers with the applicant, in terms of, well, the C2 use in terms of parking, obviously, there's different types of care as you see through these two sites, and some are obviously more intensive than others. On this scheme here, it's typically the majority, or if not all of them, due to living in obviously one room with major kind of assisted care, they tend to be more frail and elderly and don't tend to have cars. So the standard typically is for a staff member, plus obviously some available parking for visitors. Therefore, obviously, really along the standards. The fact we've got travel planning, the fact that it's located close to the district centre, and then obviously the location of the new growth area that is deemed to be acceptable.
Thank you.
We release the parking standards.
Members, any more questions? None? Okay, go to the vote then. The recommendation is set out on page 49 to approve the reserve matters. So then following that are the conditions. In the members' update, there was just removing condition 6, the boundary treatment. So all those in favour, please show. And that is unanimous for this application. Thank you very much, members. That is passed. Move on to agenda item 9, which is on page 87. It's the police house at School Hill, Wargrave. So the full application for the erection of 2 new dwellings to the west of the site. Before the committee, as it's been listed by Councillor Horsell, and most of the members went on a site visit on Friday, and the case officer is Kaylee Mansfield, who I shall hand over to.
Thank you, Chairman. The application before members is a full application for the proposed erection of 2 new dwellings to the west of Police House, Walgrove. The application site, outlined in red, is located in the built-up area of Walgrave. Residential development bounds the site to the north, east and west, with Braybrook Road located to the southern boundary. The application site forms part of an existing garden and police house, with a double garage and access arrangement located to the southwest corner of the application site. This police house, the host dwelling. 2 top photos facing west and southwest from School Hill, and the bottom 2 photos show police house facing northwest and northeast from Braybrook Road. The application site is annotated where it can be seen. This is the proposed site plan for 2 dwellings in semi-detached form. 3 parking spaces per dwelling are provided. So the side elevations of the dwellings with garage accommodations set back into the plot. The site provides rear amenity depths of 11 metres and includes additional landscaping to the front and rear boundaries. This is the application site showing views from within the site, facing northwest, west, southeast and north. You can see from these photos the existing double garage to be demolished and the large fir tree to be removed. You're also able to see the neighbouring dwellings crossways to the north and to Braybrook Road to the east of the site. This is the original proposal submitted by the applicant. As you can see, this proposal is for 2.5 stories to the front and rear of the dwellings. The gable ends are wide and uncharacteristic of its immediate surroundings. The initial proposal was not supported by officers due to its overlooking at opportunities from the rear and its out-of-keeping design approach. The revised scheme reduces the scale of dwellings to 2 stories at the front and 1 to the rear, with bedroom accommodation within the roof slope. Alterations have been made to the principal elevations by providing narrow gable end designs and introducing bay windows in line with the neighbouring character. These are the proposed floor plans. As you can see, bedrooms 2 and 3 are served with light and ventilation by the obscured oriel side windows and 2 roof lights for each room, positioned 1.7 metres above floor level. This design approach is considered to overcome the opportunities of overlooking identified by officers. The first floor side window of Police House serves an existing bedroom accommodation. However, potential views into the garden areas of the proposed dwellings are considered to be oblique and obstructed by the proposed garage accommodation, as demonstrated on the top plan. The proposed dwellings also meet the 25-degree rule, which ensure the police house side-facing windows do not result in unnecessary loss of light, as demonstrated on the plan beneath. As shown, ground levels change across the site. This plan clearly shows the comparative heights of the proposed dwellings against the existing. The finished levels of the development adjacent to Braybrook Road will be approximately 8.2 metres, resulting in roughly a metre increase above the existing dwelling. The finished levels of the development against Police House will be approximately 7.8 metres, roughly a metre and a half below Police House. The application site is in a modest development location, close to local facilities and services. The principle of the development is therefore accepted. The revised design of the proposal will enhance the character and appearance of the area without compromising the traditional character of Police House. The proposal makes efficient use of the land available and reinforces the linear development characterising the street scene. The proposed development will have an acceptable impact on the amenity of neighbouring dwellings and provides parking to highway standards without compromising highway safety. Sufficient parking within the plot provides private amenity depth in accordance with the Borough Design Guide and internal space standards in line with government guidance. The highways, landscaping trees and conservation design officers provide no objections to the proposal further to the amendments and is compliant with relevant national and development plan policies. The application is therefore recommended for approval subject to conditions. There is an update provided within the members' updates. To summarise, the application is subject to a number of updates to include the drainage condition is amended requesting more specific drainage details as outlined in full within the updates. 2 further conditions are added requesting cycle parking provision details and site level details. The total number of received neighbour objections is in fact 37 and not 27 as outlined in the committee report. And finally, further clarification, the finished heights of the proposed dwellings are approximately 8.2 metres and garden depth are 11 metres. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. The first registered speaker then is Paul Wallace, neighbour. If you'd like to come to the front, please. Good evening.
So my comments represent what I made 38 objections to this application, including that of the parish council and our local councillor, who almost to a person focus on one issue, that of safety. The vast majority of the village know nothing about this application, and that includes any permissions already granted. And if they did, there'd be far more objections, as this junction is notoriously dangerous. The junction of School Hill with Braybrook Road is on a very tight corner on a slight bend. So leaving Braybrook Road, your visibility is blocked by both corner houses. Turning into Braybrook Road, there are cars parked on the left-hand side within a few metres of the junction, which means that you have to take action immediately if another car is coming in the opposite direction, or even more immediately if there's already a car waiting for another car to come there. So it's already confusing for drivers. Then throw young children and teenagers into the mix, the last thing on whose mind is road safety. Almost every child in Wargrave who goes to the Piggott Senior School walks or cycles down Braybrook Road to school. All primary school age children from the lower part of Wargrave use it to get to the primary schools. This is because the alternative of walking along School Lane is too dangerous given the narrowness of the pavement and the road. This is their one safe route to school. Then you throw cyclists into the mix. Braybrook Road is on the National Cycle Route 4 and as such attracts more cyclists than normal. And bear in mind, national cycle routes are supposed to be safer routes for cyclists. It can be quite chaotic, that junction. I live on the opposite corner to the site in question, and whilst there, I've looked after the bikes of 2 children knocked off their bikes whilst they hobbled home. Last year, a car ended up in my hedge as a result of avoiding a vehicle coming out of Braybrook Road, and I myself have had a pram knocked out of my hand by a cyclist, by a cyclist swerving to avoid an oncoming vehicle. And those are just the incidents I'm aware of, and I'm not at home all the time because I work. None of these accidents have been reported and won't appear on statistics, but they happen. And I'm here to testify to the fact that accidents already happen at this junction. A far more serious accident will only be made more likely by the introduction into this already chaotic mix of 2 more entrances within a few metres of the junction, providing access for a potential 9 vehicles in total for that plot. The council has already spent money on making Braybrook Road safer for the school children using it by putting a pavement around my house up to the primary school and installing a pelican crossing at the other end of the road. It seems absurd now to waste that valuable money to allow something that makes it more unsafe again. 2 more executive homes will not fix Walgrave's housing problems, where we need affordable housing. The existing house, which is a 3-bedroom police house on the plot, is already on the market for just under 1 million. So this isn't going to be cheap still. Instead, they will make an already confusing and difficult junction more dangerous for the people that use it, which includes some of our community's most vulnerable members. Over 35 people from the few that know about these plans have gone to the effort of pointing out to you that this application increases the likelihood of a serious accident.
Can you begin to wind up?
These houses add little value to the village, but they do bring increased risk. Why put our children's lives at risk for 2 houses that will add so little? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Right, the next person we have is Paul Woods, the applicant. I'd like to come forward. Good evening.
Thank you, Chairman and councillors. I would just like to put across my point of view that I've worked exceptionally hard on this development. I've been working with the council planning officers for over a year. We have taken all the recommendations of the planning officers on board, every single one, and we have totally amended our project from where we started. You have, as Katie showed you there, on the elevations, and also my planning committee representative, my consultant representative did send you an email. It was on Appendix 1 from JPPC. You just see how far we've actually come from where we actually began. We were worlds apart from where we began. We now have a proposed development considered acceptable in all aspects, and I hope the committee can understand the detailed work that has gone into this proposal and can support this application. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And finally we have Councillor Horsell, who's the ward member and who actually listed this application. Good evening, John.
Good evening, sir. Good evening. Hope to turn you up. I think the first speaker summarised many of my concerns. This application has been quite confusing because there have been 3 application numbers, and the application number that you're actually considering tonight is one which I thought had died many, many moons ago. The iteration has been from 2 to 1 to 2 again houses, and there's been a lot of work done to make those houses acceptable. But the lady who spoke really indicated the major concerns. Whilst we consider it overdevelopment, Lee's house is on the corner of School Lane and Braybrook Road. Both of these roads are very, very narrow. School Lane can be very hazardous, particularly at school picking up time and dropping off times, which I doubt you saw when you were visiting the site. To accommodate the houses, the new homes, the entrance to the police house is now very, very close to our hazardous corner. And I would ask that the application be refused until considerations be given to making it safer. I don't think Highways has done a rigorous enough job to address the issues which this development will bring. I'm not an expert in planning or highways, but I can envisage that the entrance can be splayed and open as a planning condition to ensure as wide an aspect for both residents and parking cars. That only mitigates it, but it is a very, very dangerous corner. So if we do nothing and pass this, I think we will look forward to some concerns which will occur to the residents of Walgrave. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Before I open it up to members, I'm just going to ask the highways officer to respond about how dangerous that junction is and having the 3 new entrances so close to that junction.
Yep. I think just picking up the president who spoke, obviously the accidents that she mentioned, yeah, they may well be there, but unfortunately we need to encourage people to register them and report them. I've pulled up the accident data here, and there's no accidents on that junction or in the vicinity of that junction in the last 5 years. And that's the data that we're required to, that's the only data that's available to us to assess. It's data collected by the police and obviously available on national databases that we use. In terms of the accesses that are proposed, they've been demonstrated to achieve the visibility phase. We're talking 2 additional properties that are parking off street. The junction itself is already double aligned with the third foot on the bends on both sides of the carriageway and extending to the road for approximately 40-50 metres. And as such, there's nothing I can really comment about in terms of safety. There are vegetation. I agree that there is some growth obviously on the property boundaries, but that's something that again residents are on the ground. If the vegetation is overgrowing, then they need to inform the council, and we can serve notice on the residents to ensure that it's cut back to make sure that the footpaths are as clear as they're required to be to ensure that no further impacts of whatever cause is identified. So on that basis, they're not affecting the main junction itself. They've delivered access onto their individual properties as well as parking, so there's no additional parking on the street. And as such, the highway officer has obviously dealt with this scheme, has undertaken the assessments required, looked at the databases we have, and unfortunately there's nothing there that shows any issues to raise a refusal reason for the scheme.
Thank you. Members, who would like to go first? I believe there's no questions. Angus.
Somebody's got something. I was not on the official site visit, but I did visit the site this afternoon, and by coincidence it was the start of school collection time. And yes, I can see that this site is constrained by where people park. I just wonder more recently whether the impact of civil parking enforcement has or should or will assist in actually regulating the parking there. Not a planning consideration, I accept. What is going through my mind is, with the numbers of houses that are down Braybrook Road, how much more impact 2 more houses would represent, given that it's probably unlikely that most people would be driving in and out of those houses at school times. I'd be interested in any other members' views on this, but I think that is the crux of addressing the traffic point in terms of the development of the design, and I think we've all within our standards. There was some concern about overlooking, which I think has been overcome. So I think that is the only issue for discussion, Chairman.
Thank you. Who would like to respond?
I think just, picking up the council obviously through this TRICS, which is national database, where we identify obviously the associated trip rates from an individual property. On this case, there's 2 properties. If you went worst case and said there was 2 cars, which is beyond what would typically be expected from each property, or from every property in the street, for example. So even if there was 4 cars leaving this development in the peak hour, you're only adding an additional 4 cars, which over the course of peak hour is under the NPF, in PPF, in terms of identifying harm, there's no way you could justify harm from 2 properties in relation to traffic impact. But as I said, the trip rate the council has for a privately owned family dwelling is 0.43 trips in the peak hour. So if you apply that to these 2 properties, that's generating 1 trip from the 2 of them in that peak hour, because not everybody leaves between 8 and 9 o'clock. I can't add any further on, unfortunately.
Wayne?
Yeah, I think I would like to echo what Angus said. I certainly don't think it's out of character, because when you look at the design in conjunction with the properties next door, unless I've completely missed something on the plans, they're trying to almost replicate what you've got next door. And when you actually look at the overall plan of that area, you can see you've got various buildings. It's difficult to tell here, but either come off of that road almost opposite, or it's either that or back garden development. So I don't have any problem with the actual design of the house. I think it is a problem, Chris, and I don't think it's just a problem in Walgrave, it's a problem in the whole of Wokingham. You know, people tell they have accidents, and when you go on the register, because they are reporting the accidents to their insurance company, that the insurance company don't necessarily do anything with that. If it's a knock for knock, they don't inform the police, and I agree, it's a big problem. It is, that area obviously is a problem and has been a problem for a long time. We were there on school drop-off and school children going to school, and as the lady said, it is the route because you can't go down School Road, and it is an issue. But is that a big enough issue to refuse this application?
Chris?
Is that a question?
Yeah,
question. So I think, I think in terms of the accidents, they're recorded by the police as slight, serious and fatal. And so even the slightest of knocks, I mean, obviously, I think you're advised to report an accident if it's undertaken. Your insurance company won't do that for you, kind of thing. But I think that's the point. A knock for knock isn't as severe or isn't as it's not identified. If it's identified to have the police or an ambulance involved, then it will get registered. So those knock for knocks are just not identified as they're not severe enough or to be recorded. But even if they are slight and you call the police, it will get recorded. That's so it's. In areas like this, I can only advise that if they are happening and residents are aware of them happening, then they need to be reported. And obviously they need to be, the traffic management team need to be informed, and clearly you've indicated that the council has undertaken some work in that area to improve the area already, which I guess is a benefit. But in terms of, for this development, it's not for particularly this developer to improve an existing situation unless it's directly related to this development. Okay, you're mentioning it's close to the junction, but the issue around parked cars, there'll actually be 2 more driveways there, near, not on the junction, but near to the junction, which actually would prevent cars parking even closer to the junction because it's taken away more space that they see. You're technically removing some potential extra parking close to that junction as a result.
I've got Malcolm, then Michelle.
Yes, we were there on Friday morning. There are double yellow lines on both corners, quite correctly, to stop people parking there. But beyond those yellow lines, there's unlimited unrestricted parking all the way down the road. And clearly, if one were to park on both sides, it would be a problem. But in fact, people just park down one side, opposite where these houses are. If we wanted to approve this, as it is fairly close to the corner, I would hope that the requirement is that any vehicle, whether delivering work or whatever, absolutely from day one would have to go completely into the whole side. They should not be parking on the road outside at all for a minute because it doesn't permit parking. At first time.
I think on that, all that we can say is that the scheme delivers. It's got 2 parking. Adam's actually got quite a long driveway, which can accommodate more than 2 cars. It's got the garage as well. There's a condition gone on to secure the garage parking of the vehicle. So it's ensured that there is additional parking saved on site. There are no parking restrictions in the road, you're right, on the double yellow lines, and there isn't anything that we could enforce at this moment in time, should a resident obviously wish to park on the road. It's no different to any other resident parking on the road. But with the access points going in, I think the neighbours would probably soon sort themselves out if someone was parked blocking a driveway and they couldn't get out. Obviously, a restriction of an access is an enforceable offence by the police. It's an obstruction of an access. But it's, as I say, there's no restrictions there, but there is enough parking with the scheme. It washes its own face in terms of parking, applies to the standards,
I don't have any problem with the number of parking spaces with the houses and when they're built, that's fine. It's just from the outset when they're doing the building, I would hope that whether we can have a condition that says that from day one, delivery of any sort goes straight on site as soon as possible. So. Because if you have a large vehicle, even there for 5-10 minutes, it's a fairly large thing. That's really the only thing. I have no objection in terms of parking otherwise.
I think the difficulty is with that is it's just hard to enforce. It's no different to the next door neighbour to them starting to have an extension. We wouldn't put that kind of CEMP, the Construction Environment Management Plan, on such a small scale development, because it's something that can't be policed. It's not physically possible to enforce. For a large scale scheme, typically it's going on all day long, but with this, by the time any enforcement got out there, the vehicle would be gone. It would have made its delivery in 10 minutes and be on its way again. And you've got the likes of Chaps Perkins, Dewson's, many other companies are available, but in terms of, they're just a lot of quick little drop-offs and stuff for a small-scale development. It would be so almost impossible from a planning point of view, which I'm sure Connor could advise, to enforce against.
Yeah, you wouldn't. I mean, with a small development like this, you wouldn't put a restriction on. As Chris says, it's impossible to enforce. If you actually look at the layout of the site, it's actually quite difficult as well. Those small, if you've seen the Chaps Perkins turn up with the building materials, they crane, they drop it on, they drive away. So it's a very quick process generally, but you just would not be able to enforce that unless you had somebody standing there all day. But we don't have that resource. So unless you're volunteering.
I would say that during the construction process there will be issues, but because it's not long term, one can do that all the time.
It's a very short term impact. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Right, Rochelle first, then Wayne and Angus.
Well, I can say that it does meet the standards for parking. We don't have any issues with the parking right now. However, if it is a continual problem for the school, I would suggest possibly the ward council try to get some more double yellow lines further down the road so they have more space for the children to get through. That might be a solution to that. I don't see this house causing that much extra problems for the street.
Thank you, Rochelle. Wayne?
Yeah, just Chris, you mentioned the point about the garage being used as a garage.
Yep.
Have we removed the permitted developments through this application, or could we?
Yes, all permitted development rights are removed from both dwellings.
Thank you.
And Sam, we have added the bit about the cycling, which means there's more chance that the garage is going to be empty and can take a car. Right, Angus?
I'll come back to the parking one, but first, in the update, there's an additional site level condition, and it says in relation to a fixed datum point. My question is, what fixed datum point? Unless that is set, the whole thing is meaningless, surely. Perhaps I could just have an answer to that and I'll come back to the parking.
So the condition, basically what they need to do is they need to submit survey details. So that's when you get your data point, and that's what you fix it to. So as part of the site surveys, before they really do anything, we'll understand that, and that's where we work from.
Without the opportunity to drop some or take some earth away in the meantime, perhaps. Anyway, I'll leave that one. Just coming back to this problem, I don't see a problem once the houses are built. I do see and understand the issue for construction traffic, and might not be enforceable, but most builders now consider constructors and will obey rules. Would it be practical to have a condition about deliveries during school times to the sites during construction?
Living from my own experience and having just done this myself, I kind of don't, it's very, I live with a school at the end of my road, and whilst you kind of inform them as much as possible not to deliver, the concrete truck will inadvertently turn up at that time because that's just when he's arrived. And yeah, it has it's not the best of solutions or situations sometimes, but I think it just brings us back to before. It's almost impossible because it's not. I don't know who the applicant's going to obviously sell the site. He may obviously deliver the site himself. It could be any builder. Some of them may not have that considerate, nature or the requirement as a larger firm would have. And it would just be multiple contractors. One guy subbing in it to, first fix, second fix, electric, plumbing, building, whatever it may be. It's just almost impossible to unfortunately manage and enforce.
I thought that might be the answer. I suppose the one consolation is I doubt they'll be able to park out there during school times anyway.
Right. Do we have any more questions?
Yeah, I was just going to ask a question about, on page 91, condition 16 about the roof light windows. I didn't go on the site visit. I know overlooking was a problem in the original design, and it seems to have been agreed that it's not a problem now. I didn't, as I say, I didn't go on the site visit, but the building isn't there, so that doesn't really help with working this out, I think. But it says here 1.7 metres, not less than 1.7 metres. I noticed on the plan, the first floor plan on page 105, it refers to the roof light sill set at 1600 millimetres above FFL, and I'm assuming that's the same measure, so they're not the same. So I just want to double check. I've not made an obvious mistake and think they're actually two different things.
Keep just turning my off, then the officer will respond.
So could you refer me to the 1600 measurement or the page number?
So the page number is 105, so it's the, I think it's the third value.
So notwithstanding the application of the plan, we have included that condition to ensure that the windows are placed at 1.7 metres, and this is to remove opportunities of people being able to lean out the windows and overlook. So that condition overrides that.
Yeah, I've got that point. The thing I was pointing out is that on the first floor plan, it says 1600 millimetres, which is 1.6 metres.
Yeah.
So there's a difference.
Yeah.
And I kind of guess my question is, which one is the legal point here that we've got to carry forward?
Yeah, so you are correct. The first floor plan shows a different sill height on it, but the condition will trump that. So that's basically the simple answer to it. I think in terms of, if you just look at it anyway, when you have a roof light from a bedroom, it's generally considered, so you have, if it's a flat and it was living accommodation, it's a lived-in room all the time, so that can cause amenity issues. Generally in any urban area, you'll have bedrooms overlooking bedrooms. So even if you do have it, I think it'd probably be considered reasonable anyway. But what the case officer did, the negotiation she did, I think is quite good, because it's actually reduced any levels of overlooking to the property to the rear.
Okay, members, any more questions, clarifications? Are you all happy to go to the vote now?
Can I just ask one question?
Oh, right, yeah.
I know highways didn't turn up on Friday. I don't know what happened there. But have they been out subsequently and seen that junction?
Yeah, all it was that was missed on Friday is, unfortunately, an invite didn't go to an officer to attend the site visit for here, but the officer who dealt with this planning application, who has fed obviously all the information to the planning officer and written the report, has obviously clearly been to site on a number of occasions to conclude that, yeah, it was a different officer that was attending the site visit to provide you with assistance during that visit, which he apologises he didn't attend.
Okay, members, ready then? The recommendation then is set out on page 87 to grant planning permission. The conditions are set out on the subsequent pages. On the members update, there is 2 additional conditions: site levels and cycle parking, which were 2 things that came out when we did have the site visit on Friday. And then there's amendments to condition 13. So all those in favour, please show. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Those against, and those abstaining. That's 2 abstaining. Thank you very much. That application is passed. Final application tonight then is agenda item 10 on page 109. It's the Vulcan Nurseries, Swallowfield. It's a full application for 5 dwellings with garages Balancing Pond and Ecological Enhanced Area before the committee as it's a major application, and Mark Croucher is taking this one. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. There's two updates to quickly draw your attention to on the update sheets. The first one is that there'll be an additional clause in the 186 agreement so that the outline permission which is extant on the site cannot be implemented if this application is approved. The second update is an additional condition that will restrict the hours of construction. That's just our standard condition to say that no construction over certain hours and on certain days and bank holidays. The application is for full permission for the erection of 5 dwellings with detached garages, a balancing pond and an ecological enhancement area. As members will see from the report, it's mentioned quite extensively there is an outline permission on the site for 3 units, and the proposed footprint of the buildings is actually slightly smaller than that, as depicted in the outline consent. I will show a slide on that shortly. So this is just the location plan here, outlined in red. To the right of it you can see Basingstoke Road. Swallowfield is located further to the north-east, and then you've got Risley further to the south. And this is just an aerial photo showing a bit more context, and you can just see the existing bell mouth of the entrance there, which is actually constructed for the garden centre and still in situ. If members have driven past, they would have seen that. Just moving on to some photographs. These are taken from Basingstoke Road, and as you can see, it's got a very wide bell mouth there, which was constructed for the garden centre permission. That will be narrowed to make it a more appropriate scale for the domestic proposal. So the buildings will be located quite far back into the site. I'm not sure you can see, but there's just this white building here which has now been removed. That was a sales building, and that's briefly referred to in my report. That's now been demolished since this was taken, and the buildings will be roughly in line with that, so we set quite far back. And this is just taken from Basingstoke Road again, looking at the access, and it's just looking southward. So the top left picture, once again, is just to give you a context of the character of the area. There's open fields here to the right of the picture, and there's a couple of residential dwellings here. Uplands, I think, is the entrance there. You may be just able to see the entrance to the site just there. And this is looking southwards again, and once again the access is further in the distance there, and you can just sort of see the context of the area. This is the site layout, and there'll be the detached property here, and then 2 pairs of semis here and here. I've got a slightly more zoomed in photo to show you. So yeah, you can see the semi-detached properties here, and then the detached property here, and of course the access there with 2 access roads, balancing point. If I just go back to this plan, this is the ecological enhancement area referred to. So this part of the site will not be developed, and there'll be an ecological enhancement management plan secured by the 186 to ensure that is retained for that purpose. If we just quickly go through the elevations. So this is plots 2 and 3, which are the semi-detached properties. Mention what they're asymmetrically designed and have traditional features. They also have a variation of sort of projecting elements and ridge lines, which helps break up the mass and form. And this is just the floor plans. They'll both be 4-bedroom houses, and you can see the sort of solid subdivision wall in the middle there. And this is 4 and 5. They're just a mirror image of the previous ones. And you can see the garages down there as well, just 2-bay garages. This is the larger property, which is plot 1, which will be located to the north of the plot. And as you can see, it's a fairly large house, but once again, as I mentioned previously, there is actually a reduction in footprint since the outline consent. And this is just the floor plan, so it will be a large, very large property, and it will be 6 bedrooms. This is the plan on the top left is the proposal before members, and the plan in the bottom right is the scheme submitted at the outline stage. And it's really just to show you a comparison of what was being considered at that time. So you can see sort of the 3 large built forms here with the detached garages as well. And as mentioned there, when you sort of sum it all together, there's a slight reduction in footprint, and that sort of art layout was sort of on the table at the time of the outline consent. To conclude, Chairman, The application is recommended for approval for the reasons set out in the report, subject to the Section 186 agreement with the added clause mentioned at the start, and also all the conditions, including the additional condition 18 as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Right, we have two people registered to speak. Neil Davies, the agent, and Gareth Pearce, the neighbour. Garth, I do apologise. Now, so you've got the 3 minutes. Do you want the buzzer to go at 1.5 minutes, or what would you like?
You take more than 2. I'll take probably be about a minute and a half. The rest. We're quite happy that we're within the 3 minutes, so
okay.
Yeah, we'll roll on one onto the other.
Okay.
Thank you. The application before members tonight has been carefully designed to integrate with its surroundings, and this fact is reflected in the officer recommendation for approval. We also have no letters of objection and 5 letters of support, including a letter of support submitted by the Parish Council. The main points in support of the proposal are as follows. The site already has planning permission for residential development at the site for 3 large dwellings, as well as an extant permission for a garden centre. Both permissions are relevant fallback positions. This application reflects the layout, siting and spread of development agreed under the earlier residential permission. The main difference is that 2 of the detached houses have been split into semi-detached properties, reflecting market conditions and also providing smaller, more affordable dwellings. Ecological enhancement is central to the application. There will be a large ecological enhancement area and a new pond, as well as structural planting throughout the site. The fact that there are no amenity concerns from local residents is reflected in a lack of objections. Residents are keen to have a resolution to the site and to see it developed. The proposal will have fewer traffic movements than the approved garden centre use. The applicant has agreed to provide the full financial contribution towards affordable housing, and no objections have been raised on the grounds of trees, ecology or highways by internal or external consultancy bodies. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Garth Pearce. I'm a neighbour of this site and represent residents in 10 properties either who overlook the site or nearby. All of us are unanimous in our support. Now, without over-egging it, this site has a long and checkered history, and it would probably take me 60 minutes to talk about it rather than less than 60 seconds. But at last we have an owner who has consulted all the residents at regular stages, and is put through different plans. All of us have had a meeting and looked at the plans. We like them enormously. So unlike the last issue that you've discussed, we've got the perfect storm of everyone on side, the local parish council, the residents, our local district councillor, planning officer, and it would be wonderful to actually have this approved. I've been coming back and forth to this committee for the last 25 years on a succession of mad schemes that would have ruined all our lives. And we've had fantastic support, I must say, from the planning committee and working in Borough Council. As you see, went to 3 planning inquiries, all of which were found in our favour. And it would be great to have a result before the years age and weary me, before I come back to another meeting and they say, Mr. Pearce is here, wheel him in. So would you please propose and pass this plan? That would be great. Okay.
Just press the button, please.